Tenzin Dorjee Shima Tami Dene Bechanda Tawata Timba Dorjee Peso Sojo Taje Deja Tende Dene Yo Saje Beje Shoje Medo Tam Jero Lenje Nyede Jembande Sanye Jendo Mede Bongwa Yen Tokwen Ando Kino Sheba Jo Edam Guru Rana Matara Kone Yatanya Sangha Chedan Dorjee Chonan Shachu Bardo Dane Shilsun Dage Shege Jebe Sonam Dolam Pesha Sanjin Rupa Jo Sangha Chedan Dorjee Chonan Shachu Bardo Dane Shilsun Dage Shege Jebe Sonam Dolam Pesha Sanjin Rupa Jo Sangha Chedan Dorjee Chonan Shachu Bardo Dane Shilsun Dage Shege Jebe Sonam Dolam Pesha Sanjin Rupa Jo. Onlas Majunan Gitadani, Bisengi Tamji Tendo, Toja Lana Meka, Yanda Buzubi Sanji, Kumbarum, Bukinji, Tobra Shagwe, Tetobra Shavi, Chedo, Tambe Cherum, Bujisan, Bekono, Sanji, Semji, Semegon, and Sembrishu.
Let us cultivate the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of liberating infinite, kind, mother sentient beings, with that kind of what we call bodhichitta motivation, the highest kind of motivation that one could cultivate. We should participate in this teaching.
Tangaran Chamalo, he Dungi Dungi Jotungi, Deva Chitan, and it Dewata Devi Jokandichi in a Tiran, you have the son of Tani, that should do your bus.
I believe that all of us have taken interest in cultivating dharma or spirituality just because deep down inside us we would like to get rid of suffering and its causes because we don't like them, don't want them, and deep down inside us we are seeking happiness and its causes because we like them and we would like to have them.
So that deal that so the Ali Madam Son Doyati Ranju la Yepe Sem Mahivate Pa Hivatan Sem Dukjati Pa Meba Zuni Dilo Sho Da Randa Yen Pembe Samukitan that thing about Higuris.
So in order to fulfill our deepest wishes, if you will, which are just briefly mentioned, it is not only very pertinent but essential for us to see that now our unsubdued mind needs to be subdued, or our undisciplined, untrained mind needs to be trained. And so in the process, what we are trying to do is we try to stop or get rid of, if you will, unhealthy attitudes or states of mind, which include negativities, and we try to cultivate positive states of mind or attitudes, which especially consists of cultivating altruism, beneficial attitudes towards other sentient beings.
So that Maranchole and that thing sang and that Harbor to Himanga do in the Lane Goyak and it to the Peta, he may come on a Shiran devo the kiwo at the Mekamanagi. Mendevi don't hate the pay Chabanagi Padne, do Shinguarvas.
As I often mention this, that we are living at such a particular time which is characterized by what we call, for lack of more eloquent and better words, 5 degenerations or 5 drags. And so living in such a time and situations, what we find ourselves experience is that when it comes to misery and unwanted problems, suffering, they befall us. It is like a torrential rain. It's just a downpour of suffering and problems on us. But when it comes to experiencing, real peace and happiness, it's like a day star. It just only happens once in a blue moon. It's very rare.
So that Maranzo Tola, Ranta Yange Tola, Muyaga, Mudebi Dungatin. Shonsati condition of Resona are same Madua Tamagiwi, Ranta Yange, same Madua Tamagiwi Tone, the laying about the Namit and Debut, and Ranta Yang, Imbata, never some Congress.
So now, if we ask this question to ourselves, where do all these problems and suffering or the bad things that we obviously don't want, but they befall us? In abundance, if you will. What is the real source of all of these problems that we encounter in our life or that others encounter in their lives? Well, the source is it's not something outside really. It is what we have got inside us. It is because our own mind is not tamed, it's not subdued, it's not trained or disciplined. So because of that, because of unsubdued state of mind, what happens is we and others, we go through the same process. We engage in or we get involved in creating negative karmic actions, right? Negative karmic actions are motivated by unsubdued state of mind. So then, what we get out of all this is we get suffering and problems as their ripening results. Okay, so we have to understand, maybe, if you put it in a mathematical equation, it is like bad motivation, and doing the bad action leads to bad result. And that's what we have been doing, caught ourselves doing it, and that's how we end up, encountering the problems that we don't want in our life.
Me yimba derta shemevres yinaya ani shinjung ani tin namikin debute yani and moye tati gaja sheyat ngaranso tanda lakpenol yoderes.
So whether it is good karma that we have created or a bad karma that we have created, which has already ripened upon ourselves. So in the case of a good karma, now the ripening result that we experience now, here and now, is a good result, or bad karma that we created, which has already ripened now. So the result we experience here and now is a bad result. So this we can't do much here. It is too late to interfere with the outcome of the karmas. It's too late. It's just right here, and you just got to experience it. There's nothing one can do about it. But what we really need to understand and keep in our mind is this, that all the good and bad karmas that we have already accumulated, we have not yet, produced their results. Maybe we can do something about them. Of course, we don't want to mess up with the outcomes of the good karmas, but we can do something with the outcomes of the bad karmas, because these karmas have not yet ripened. You see, their outcome is in the future. It's not right here. So what we can do is we can counteract our bad karmas with antidotes so that these bad karmas will be purified or decreased or minimized, and they really don't bring out the bad outcomes in the future.
년도쇼 박자야야 될다 최잡는 차고요. 선선서 말아줄다 미기위 아니 딱 랑 셈 짱마들 미기 마고 받치셔고요.
So we may use this metaphor to understand our mind. Mind that we have, in a generic sense, is like a piece of plain cloth. It's a white cloth. You see, it's unstained, and that's, what it is. But then all this bad and good karmas we create, so it is similar to we are dyeing the plain cloth with some kind of color, and so obviously we don't want the wrong color, here, and which in other words to say that we do not want to create negativities which would stain our mind.
So, 나제 일만한지도 잔데 네 기업이 봤어. 랑 셈도 로 최선로 최 남던로 다 들리지. 랑 셈도 최소라. 르다 나다 이숨부터 셈자 마인베 르다 나다 이숨부터 개소라. 단로 퇴지 다 내가 상당
As I mentioned this before, that in our dedication prayers, we could and we should pray that bless us or inspire us to be able to direct our mind into spirituality or dharma, so that our mind, is one with spirituality. There is no disparity or a gap, between mind and the dharma, so that we are able to cultivate spirituality as spiritual path within our mind, so that we are able to overcome the obstacles or interruptions on our way, in that we are able to, cultivate the spiritual path to the greatest extent possible. We succeed in doing that. So we make those dedication prayers, and but if we try to simplify all of these things, if you say, what is the bottom line? Just speak, in the simplest terms you could, and which I often try to do, is this, that in our everyday life, we should see that, our body, speech, and mind, which all of us have got, these three things, right? This is how we perform, actions. So our actions of body, speech, and mind, they, become positive actions. We don't want to use our body, speech, and mind to do something harmful, something negative.
손자한테 당긴 힘을 교절 두 니만가보 두 냠바기래 삼 다두 냠바텔 아니 참말로 배 주발렌 듭시니 강가는 찍버시니 대 동행 용게 또 끼와 용거 있는 삼 상코를 때 용거 말했어 거 먼저 하고도 와서 배나 아니 도시 끼긴나리 년대서 되서 다 내길은 도시 대야비 있네요 소수의 메시지당데 쳐박히 보지 로고도 왔어 그래서 이 토네 아니 시다니 뒤냠바 있나요 라가데 뒤냠바데 아니 아데 남이 용거에 저 매나 아니 라한테 용거만 왔어 용거 말했어
Just a little while ago, what I said was that in a generic sense, that we were living through, in some sense, the worst of the time. We talk about 5 degenerations or 5 dregs, so which means that, we are really not in a happy time and situation, and things obviously go more, bad and worse than good, But that is it's a description of, if you will, the general situation in which, we may say we find ourselves in. But then what really makes the difference, what you or I as an individual person experience, go through, but that has to do with one's own good and bad karmas. It doesn't mean that, now we are living through all this, horrible times called, Buddhists call it 5 degenerations or whatever, so life is kind of screwed up and is a mess, so this is pretty much it. No. As an individual, if you do a lot of good karmas, because these good karmas will have their good results. So as an individual, one doesn't have to go through all the messy life, even though we live in a generic sense in a really bad time. And so this is what we can understand, right? When we look around with the people or beings in the same neighborhood or in the same city, that's what Geshe said, Tonggyal is a city, that all people are not going through the same, situations and experiences. There are people whose life seems to be much better. They have a quality life, you see, and the way they are living is really much more peaceful and, whatnot. And these people do not seem to go through all the headaches and, terrible things that other people in the same city are going through. Why? We are all living through the same 5 degenerations, but the difference here is because of one's own karmic actions. So we can do something about our own experiences of different things, is modifying our behaviors or our karmas.
No, that one can same kiva same day my kiva shaguru samni ta kuchu and of the shin so changba deni today they are sometimes today the tone any rang same to hitu mares ran changwa deni fishing and some to karseta manda mambatan megi leg some mambatan and today shaving energy tosina devil that chetania mares in that tosina devil in a rang same the rang dang jenny and megi shows mandava sheni give a show per cord nibechi shona that they that same madu do tap that race.
So as we speak about, our goal is to experience, real peace, real happiness, and true well-being. Well, then some might get this notion of, okay, so I'm really seeking peace, so therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate myself from the rest of the society, all people, okay? So I'm going to go and stay in a solitude. So basically, I will be a loner, I don't do anything with the people because that is miserable and all disturbances and whatnot. Okay, so finding peace means I'm going to find a solitude, stay alone, nothing to do with people, and so as if that will bring peace. Well, we could stay alone in a solitude with nobody around, but our mind can be churning out all the negativities that one could possibly think or imagine, or we can't imagine even. Okay, so in such a case, it doesn't matter. Maybe it's much better to live in a city in a nice and friendly, people, rather than just as if you are in a solitude and going crazy with all the negative thoughts, you see, because that doesn't work. That doesn't bring peace. So to bring peace of mind, to bring happiness, what we are really basically saying is how best can we discipline or control our own mind. It's not so much the location where you live. You could live in a society crazy, but if you have learned to control your state of mind and discipline your mind, you could still find peace, relative peace, of course. If you don't know how to do that, we could be living in the Amazon jungle. Geshe didn't say that, but just to wake you all up, and alone with nobody around, but life will be hell, And so it's basically to do with training our mind, controlling our mind. Don't let mind control us, but how can we control our mind, and do the right thing. Yes.
Same day, Langjing Hemba na chagres. Langjing Hemba ko kaba shembi ko never see a mato ani penta kilamo to pen miso kamena ya pe ta hindan na sedan kares ta zihinla so tende meton of the yan kanga pe torai mato call hito ji yamarwas tin na kingra jo semte o Langjing Hemba na chagres. Just the thing that gold jingi so rang same Langjing Hemba te ani tembe and tabake ne pe ta mi ba karin tel ba tagres to sonyares.
So when our mind is diluted, when our mind is unsubdued, then what we really can see is that our mind is just a crazy elephant. Okay, so what can we expect out of a crazy elephant? Nothing but destructions. Right? If a crazy elephant runs through the neighborhood or town, it's going to kill a lot of people and destroy a lot. Well, if a crazy elephant is in the jungle with no people around, still it will destroy a lot of the jungle. And if crazy elephant goes into a beautiful park or a flower, it's going to destroy all the flowers. That's what the crazy elephant does, And when our mind is deluded, it is not disciplined. That's what our mind does, So what we are really doing, when people talk about meditation, I'm going to do meditation practice. What we're really trying to do is they're trying to find a way or a means to tame their mind. Okay? And there are many techniques. But one of the most prevalent techniques that meditators use is they use mindfulness, Tenpa in Tibetan, right? They use mindfulness to bring our mind into focus so that it will stay focused on whatever subject or object. You see, English language is beautiful, right? If I say object, then some people get upset. It's not object, it's subject. And subject then says, what's object? Anyway, you know what I'm saying. It's the focus of meditation, right? And so with mindfulness, you bring your mind into focus on whatever the things you are focusing on, subject, object, subject, whatever it is, right? And that's how we discipline our mind.
So that condition kanji ran le mende pe kare so tati rang ram me zo yo ken penati ha ta mari pi wang ngaju ta thong go ya maris pen rang ki de cha ki da timu rang gil ge pe mari pa she an de cha shi ane nga je she ta de tu so ma lo ta me ge sim tu zo ka ne rang gil ge pe me ge sim ti ram me zo yo ta ting ngaju ha ko go ya maris.
And also we don't know how much the delusions, in a way diminish or undermine ourselves, you see. We can talk about any delusions. We can talk about the three poisons, or the poisons delusions: ignorance, attachment, hatred. Well, add to the list other things like a jealousy, egomaniac, or whatever, the things. What all of these delusions, do is that when they pop up, they are diminishing and undermining our own state of being. It's not just only we are creating miseries to others' life, but these delusions inside our mind are undermining our own state of being, you see, and we don't realize that.
Rang never saying it that dukshiti. Rang le nin the same kanga social ne pe ne chane, ne sand of yarni, that 2000 nin the same kandina. Rang never saying dukshiti thing, rang. Rang the nyam the 2000 road de yours that they have go amars thing around. Maranso does show pandu stay the yours. They might you amar. Done none of opinion on this canando.
And we are so used to identifying enemies as someone out there. You see, we always chase the enemy out there somewhere, you see, in the mountains and valleys and nooks and corners of the world, but we really never pay attention to where the real enemy is. It is really residing in us. And the really worse than that is, it's with us all the time, 24 hours. You see, delusions don't go into sleep when we are sleeping. It's still there with us. Okay? Of course, when we are in a wakeful state, well, they are there, you see. And so, day in and day out, the real enemy, who is residing in us is with us all the time. There's not a moment where we are really free from them. And that's what we really need to recognize and we need to understand. We are chasing the wrong enemies. We are really not paying attention to the real enemy that is inside us.
So that translation ya bo tong shin ngaran su chub dung ki chok chama lok ane ta mil never ma she ba she ane rang ke sem te rang le pe that rang sem le rang ta che she ni and che ta me give shul ndo ne tan ro ma che ba she give shul ka sin na pa ane the ko sin na me ta ban ro tu be che ko le.
So as practitioners of dharma, or those who are interested in practicing dharma, we need to pay attention to these matters or the issues which I just kind of briefly outlined. And then what we really need to do is this, that whatever we do, say or think, we are not thinking unkindly of others. We are not saying something that hurts others. We don't do something that damages or hurts others. You see that our actions, do not harm other people and other beings. So how could we do that? If we ask, is that we need to see that, we need to investigate our own state of mind, okay? And we need to say, okay, is my mind in a negative state or in a positive state? If our mind is in a negative state, and if we let our mind go in a negative state, then we will do the wrong thing and we will experience the wrong thing. So what we really need to do is we have to recognize that, okay, I can't let my mind be in a negative state. I need to change that. I need to bring it back home, so to speak. And I need to direct my mind into positive thinking. But our mind is in a positive thinking, that's great, you see. We just let it be there or try to enhance it. So that's what we mean, conducting our life properly in everyday situations or practicing dharma.
That the tangi totally. And then the rang tola. When they bring condition begin at that rank, laying about Sabinami the run yomba in somebody to coach up a show somebody. Did the only thing told the Tony sinking in another day, and they yell and they sing in the run drive any. The dick doing young guitars, Tommy, you return to Tomaloke, Marandi coach up a something ever Santona, and the Tony question the attacking girls.
And we also need to take responsibility for our own actions, good and bad. Okay? And there is an accountability here. And maybe in the Buddhist language we say we need to own our actions. You see, we can't blame other people or situations for the things going wrong in our life. You see, we always point our finger at someone. See? But what really is this, if things are going wrong in my life, it's more to do with my own negative actions, you see. And who did that? Me. The Tenzin did it, you see. So I'm therefore responsible for my actions. I need to own my actions. Okay, there's an ownership, you see, here. And so then, don't be mad with the bad things happening now because we already performed the actions. But we will just say, okay, by my experience of these bad things, may I be free of those negativities I already created. Okay. Now, if we want to be really more sort of what we call broad-minded people, or we want to expand our way of thinking, and this is where we can do the Tonglen practice, the practice of taking others' problem and suffering upon ourselves and giving happiness and goodness to other people. So then what we do is, okay, not only that I'm very self-centered, oh my gosh, I did the bad thing, I'm experiencing it, okay, now I don't have to experience it anymore. Well, that's still self-centered. Well, that's all right. It's a good way to think. But now we said, okay, by my experience of this particular situation, I'm sure there are many other people and beings who are experiencing the same thing, or may have experienced this kind of thing. By my experience of this negativity, may they do not have to experience such, problems ever. Okay, so may this experience of mine fulfill some greater purpose that other people do not have to experience it. So that's how we genuinely practice. We're not mouthing it, or we're not faking it all out. This is how, we really sincerely do our Tonglen practice, the practice of giving happiness to others and taking others' suffering to oneself. So what I've just explained here, this is exactly what we learn. One of the really very central techniques in the Lojong practice, mind training or thought transformation practice, is how can we transform the adverse conditions into favorable conditions. Okay, so this is one way to do it. You adopt a positive attitude towards the problems you're encountering, and then you think about altruistically so that this bad experience, it can fulfill certain greater purpose. Okay, so that goes with our Tonglen practice. And then those of us who recite Guru Puja or Lama Choba, we know there are powerful stanzas there which do deal with or speak to us about transforming adverse conditions into favorable conditions. So those are a few thoughts I would like to share before returning to our wonderful text. Of course, these are all not really based on some deep experiences I claim to have, but definitely these are based on the Dharma education I have been through, So I'm just sharing this with you, with two purposes, as I said, a good reminder for those who already know about this stuff, and a new information for the new people. So basically we all need to, pay attention to this. Yes. So let's go back to this text called, just to be simple, Personal Advices from Kadampa Geshes. Yes.
Takasi, Tanding, man, the Hijan, Tanding Godigers, Capena Tambu, He Temple, Tembe, Makalin Nambatele, and the Chow Matapa, the legend amount of gums, starting in Butte, in huge time bus. Calling the short erased.
Just to remind you that the two cousins from some eastern part of Tibet, they asked, a question to Domtempa, and Domtempa was responding to them, and of course his response consists of a number of statements. And why we are getting stuck, everything, is because I try to elaborate and unpack each statement. And the last time it said, the first thing he said is, you need to meditate many times on death impermanence of things. Okay, so we talked about that. What does it mean? Okay, and then he said, meditate many times on the law of karma and its outcomes.
That is it. That he yul knows ganta rangi kelongpe and sundong takbar shas that thing about the young hakogris.
And another statement as a response to their question is, whatever vows and commitments you have taken, you need to keep them pure or intact. And that is so crucial to us.
That is any rangi kelang be sungguya the domba siga, the sungdom se sungguya domba te, takbar shese, pepi takusipa sungris, kanang doa.
So if we really look at the wording, it says, rangi kelang ba, what you have promised to keep. That means, you made a promise. That's what he's telling us, right? And sungdom means, what we said, we are going to keep vows and commitments. That means we need to safeguard them, and these need to be kept pure.
That rang says, the sung said, oh, that's Yakan Kingi, the Masung, asked me, this some Giamars. Rang tall, rang sanatani. Oh, don't tell about news Makana, but Marale. Sunja Kariki, thing about the Sungu do at the Sung Chusakan and the Wasante, Susam to Susam Bangladesh.
So once again, I would like to emphasize the point that as we are going through this question and answer, and A's here, but don't think as if we are just here to do some kind of a study group. Okay, what questions did they ask? What did Domtempa say to them? As if we have nothing to do with it. When he says, whatever you have promised, just take the you as meaning me. Domtempa is speaking directly and personally to me. Don't think like, okay, the two cousins, you as two cousins. No, then it becomes less of a personal relevance. We just have to say, okay, Domtempa is speaking to me, said, what you have promised, meaning me, I have promised, I need to keep those vows and commitments pure.
Tandi ngarazo taban dosini chasheni sampang his karing is Pena Sandra Dombalang Manung and the Batan, Tendinata, Domba cake long maybe in Tati cake sungu mab some good west, the Maris, Kanditi in Singi Kanditi in Migi Chobu Surti, never the sungu, Rangi Kanamatos. Tele Ani Sunja Tele, Rangi Kanamato, the Quebec Kanamatos in those New Years. There's a Quebec Kanamato. When the Radishwata, Sumata, Radishwata Zumatu Sungu Maris, Nina Rangi Kanamatote, Samala Sunga Cheris.
Now, if we are trying to unpack here, there are many things to talk about. Now, one might entertain this kind of thought that, okay, I have not taken, for example, refuge vows, which is very fundamental basic vows, which means you're not taking any other vows, beyond that, right? So therefore, which means this doesn't apply to me, so I can just do whatever freaky things I can do, there's no rules here now. Geshe didn't say those, but just to get the message strongly to ourselves. But what we need to understand is, when we talk about negativities, we could think of negativities arising from two different sources. Okay, one is what we call Rangshen Yikat Madawa. Certain actions, they are considered negative because of the way these actions are. Okay, nobody need to lay out the rules and regulations. It just, if anybody, doesn't matter whether you believe in any dharma, sharma, rama, whatever, not. Okay, but if you do that action, that is a negative action because of the very nature of that action. So when we perform those negative actions, we have to experience the negative outcomes. You see, we are really not talking about some religious groups or followers here, right? Anybody who does such actions which are considered negative by way of their very entity or the nature need to pay the price. Okay. So, no. So if you say, give an example, as I often talk about, seems very basic, right? The 10 negative actions of body, speech, and mind. Okay, this has, it's not like, okay, I'm not a Buddhist or I'm not even a religious person or whatever. Doesn't matter. If I do them, so some way I get a leeway here, some exception to the rule. No, doesn't matter whether one is a believer or non-believer or dharma, sharma, rama, whatever it is. But if one does any of these actions, right, negative actions, body, speech, and mind, just because these actions are negative from their very nature or entity point of view, this will bring negative outcomes. Okay, that means universal thing, applies to one and all. Okay. Now there's another source of negativities, which is that when we make a promise or a pledge, okay, for example, we talk about, say, in the Buddhist community, the good examples are monks and nuns. They have taken upon themselves to take the monastic vows. Okay, so once you have promised to do that, if you transgress your vows, now such transgression constitutes negativity, which may become negativity for the lay people because there is no such rules. Said I'm going to be, So this is like how the negativity due to pledging oneself to keep certain rules and regulations, and we call it morality or ethics here. Are you with me? You see, so there are two sources of negativities, right? So either we do something action which are negative by way of their very nature, nothing to do with Buddha's rule or somebody's rule. It's just the way it is. Okay, and then there are certain things, our actions become negative only because we are transgressing vows and commitments that we have pledged to keep, and now we are not keeping them.
No, that the told when that Sandra Damba Yankina, Migi Japan children go tall, that Sandra Damba Karalang and Sonja Jetta, Kalan Besonja, Gabi Haja, Develaji, New York, the Songa, the Songo.
So of course in Buddhism we talk about many different levels of vows and commitments, right? Okay, so at the very foundation level, one says, okay, I'm going to take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, so I'm going to take the refuge precepts or the vows. Okay, so in which case, now not only that we should not do the 10 negative actions of body, speech, and mind, now additionally we need to keep the refuge precepts. And what are the refuge precepts involved? They are categorized into two kinds. There are what we call prohibitory precepts, the things we should not do, which go against Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and the complementary precepts, what we should do, which will enhance our refuge practice.
That the tola, and Geshe Kadampa Yankina, Rajuma Chuma and Tatawa in the Geshe Kadampa Yankina, that again come at the Ganga tola Geshe Kadampa Songo.
So now if someone has taken the, what we call the first level of the monastic vows, okay, not only that one has taken the refuge precepts, now that as a foundation, one has taken the first level of ordination, which for lack of a better word in English called novice monk and novice nuns, okay, and it's called Shramana and Shraman in Sanskrit. So here, now the novice monks and nuns need to keep the monks and nuns' vows here, whatever nuns vows they have promised to keep.
That the tola, when only that I did Dandogini, Guinea Domba Yungina at the Sungaris, that Gisu Domba, Guinea Domba, Shetan Megachabu Churchi, T tola Shandu Dombashi, T tola Guinea Dombashi, T tola Gisu Dombashenta, the Tunzukang Songo was.
Let me make a little correction here. That okay, so let's say X here has not committed yet to any vows and commitments, right? At least this person should not do any of the 10 negative actions of body, speech, and mind. Okay, because that has less to do with rules and regulations. Because as I said, the very nature of these actions are negative. Now somehow the X has decided to take the refuge precepts, while additionally he or she needs to keep them. While now the X wants to, take a layperson's vows, we call upasaka or upasika vows. Well, in addition to the refuge precepts, now need to keep the layperson's vows. Okay. Now the X decided, okay, I'm going to try to be monk and nun, so I will become a novice here. So now I need to keep the novice, vows and commitments.
That he told that Gesushi and that Genye Gesushi and that Gelong Dombatan Dusinia Gelong Pata Gelong Mark Domba Yunkina, that Komat is told Kangata Gelong Pamani Domasong.
And now the X decided, okay, now I'm ready to take the full ordination, right? So either it's a full ordination of a monk or a full ordination of a nun, right? Now what happens is, this X has to give so many vows and commitments. It's not like, okay, I'm going to the higher level and I can say goodbye to the later one. No, you're adding more to that. You see, you're adding more vows to the refuge practice, you're adding more vows to the novice, you're adding now this whole lot of other vows and commitments.
No. That he told that Domba Sumdi in and that Chimba in a Shangisim with Domba in a Chimba Galen Kugur, that Shangisim with Domba Songo.
So now I'm just kind of laying out the structure of the Buddhist vows and commitments that one could take, Now, you see, whether you're a lay practitioner or you're a monk or non-practitioner, you said, okay, now I want to also take bodhisattva vows. Okay, because you don't have to become a monk or nun to take bodhisattva vows, which is higher level vows. Okay, so which means now we added more, you see, to our part here. Right, so now we not only have the refuge vows, now we have let me run through the whole list. We have to abandon the 10 negative actions, body, spirit, and mind. We have to keep the layperson's vows. We have to keep the novice vows. We have to keep the full ordination vows if you want a monk or nun. If not, you see, we have to have the bodhisattva vows. Or as a monk or nun, you have the bodhisattva vows.
No, that he told Annie, Mark, that Dombalani, Mark wants you in the day Dombalang, Tang Hag Tansi Doma Sung Church, Tan Dos and Rempe, that's the Chamalota, Dos in Sunja Terrace, Tanda Dombati, Sang Sunja, the Yanta, Pita with Sunkus Kanayati, Tan didn't do Nitan the Kij of Tenzures.
And then, of course, we still have more vows we could take, right? Even as a lay practitioner or a monk and non-practitioner, now we can take the tantric vows, which is the highest kind, okay? So now if we look at the whole spectrum of vows and commitments that one said, Mr. X or the Mrs. X said, I'm going to do it. So if we start from the gecko all the way to the tantric vows, that's a whole lot of range of vows and commitments one said one will keep, right? So what does it mean when the Domtamba says you need to keep the vows and commitments you pledge to keep really pure? Means all of this is the vows and commitments that we talk about in Buddhism.
So that answered the Domba Dusin. So K landed on the Lelaver was. Sunja the soon took them and do some Takia was Shagurish. But the soon at the couple of us.
So it's also important for us to consider this matter seriously, that it seems to make it easy to pledge, make a promise, okay, I'll do it. But then once it comes to doing it, keeping the vows, we know how challenging and difficult that is, So we want to take time and investigate how much can I really handle here, okay? And don't jump into taking all kinds of vows and commitments, because it's easy to make the promise, but very hard to keep the promise.
So that answer the Domba to Yabush Masuna, and the rank, there's a Sanji companion and Karinata, when the Zula and rank Julia Shevalata. So
what happens if we don't, keep our promise here? Okay. Well, it is not a statutory law here which says you will be sent behind the bar for a certain number of days or whatever. Okay. But what happens is it's spiritually detrimental. Okay. And because what we want is, we want to cultivate all the positive qualities in our mind. We want to progress spiritually. We want to mature spiritually. But as we keep on making promises and breaking promises, this breaking promises become an obstacle here on the way, that it becomes detrimental, that now we are not making much progress, or we are just kind of, lacking behind. So this is what happens.
So That the song are stay, young and song are dancing dumba making reputation song I shows that none of just dancing the dumba rang song at the rank and making reputation. There is song but tell hot song is. When the rank makes it better, Samalo, that Kadiki in a Sunjak and Nani, that Zuperna Sunjak and Nani, that mitigation which have your of us. They was sooner of us, Samalo. Then nine telejan, rang Milijani, flag machine, does the rang dumba sunati, I dance it that maintaining some making big songs.
In the Vinaya text or the discourses dealing with ethics, it is clearly stated that one needs to safeguard or protect one's vows and commitments just as one would protect one's pupils of one's eyes. Okay, it's that sensitive, because of course we need to protect our whole body. We don't want to get hurt in any situation, but then we do have to make choices sometimes. So what often people do is eyes are the really important organs, So we try to protect our eyes in the same way that we need to protect the vows and commitments, that we have.
Yeah. Made that you that tell and be showing a made in those that was. But then the valley tell China go Turkish. That is me not tell it my own and those go to us.
So if there's a dust storm or somebody throw dust at us, what do? We try to protect our eyes, right? We don't care that much if we get a dust in our hair. We can, that's okay. But we don't want the dust to get into our eyes.
And then the Venerable Geshe Tsultim Gyeltsen. Tamsik yang domba yak ngamanis. Ya se tagas yang samare. Ya puting those in pukanki. That me kanking se taking cigarette song your dina. Kanking se those in ngamate. Sub that shield up to the top in. Ko le mata ko den ko so chena te. Soon they go. The nice they
And another example that often is given by the Tibetan lamas, with regard to protecting or safeguarding our vows and commitments, is they give this example of a yak. That must be a special yak. Not every yak does that. It's just that if this special yak, probably we can think of, that when its tail gets stuck into bush or something, that it doesn't want to lose even 1 or 2 strands of hair from its tail. It just sits there until somehow the whole tail is out safely. You see? So we need to protect our vows and commitments, as good as this particular yak does with his or her tail in the, in the bush.
And then
so I think that's not a special yak. I think that yak considered its hair really very precious and, very valuable.
So that consider Dombati any Sundo Takra Shese, Pitaway with Song Race Kanang,
So here Domdaba tells us, you need to keep your vows and commitments that you pledge to keep pure, right? So I just kind of highlighted what the kind of levels of vows that one, could take and then one should keep, pure.
Oh, yes. That day, you get more additional to Domba Yoravas.
Yes. So now kind of, bring this thing home here is, I think most of us here, we have at least taken refuge precepts. So somebody like us who are monks and nuns, then we have too many vows to keep. And then I think many of us here have received the tantric empowerments or initiations. So now when we look at these different levels of vows that we could take, as I said, from the what we call individual emancipation vows, which include monks and nuns vows, all the way up to bodhisattvas and tantric vows, right? So should we transgress any of these vows? Is there a difference in terms of seriousness? And yes, there is. Just to kind of give an idea here. Let's say if someone with an individual emancipation vows, which includes a lot of vows, okay, maybe the one we know mostly is the monks and nuns vows here, right? If you break 10 of those, whereas somebody with a tantric vow breaks a very minor tantric vow here, that breaking the minor tantric vow is more serious than breaking 10, individual emoncipation vows here. Of course, there are too many things to talk about here, and I'm not going to take time here to just get stuck with this matter, but I'm just saying one or two things here just to give you a taste of what it is, so that you will explore or find out more about these things. Even great Indian master Atisha was, reported to have said that in his life he never transgressed any of his monks' vows. He was so meticulous about that. But when he said it comes to keeping the tantric vows pure, he said that was a very tough time. He said there were cases of transgressions. So whether Adisha was really speaking about himself or more about us or others, that's another question we need to find out. But what he really said, if you take that at a surface face value, what he's really telling us is this, that it is relatively speaking easy to keep the monastic vows than the tantric vows and commitments. So even such a great being as Atisha, I'm talking about the vulnerability to transgressing tantric vows, right? Now, how much more that vulnerability is in our case or situations, And of course, in his case, or in the case of others who are like Atisha, if they transgress something, they wouldn't even let any time pass by. They would do the purification practice. They would do the confession. Not like, we do. We just never do, or we postpone it, altogether to some other date, doing our confession, So what really I think is a wonderful thing for us to do is in the morning we get up and we cultivate good thoughts, and then during the daytime we try to put those thoughts into action as much as we could, or keep our vows and commitments as best as we could. But should we transgress any of vows or commitments or do something negative in the evening or before we go to bed, I think it's important for us to sincerely confess or purify those. Okay, don't let a day pass by. Okay, because in some way we are human. We might do the things because of our situation. But it's really important for us not to let them be the mistakes or the errors, but try to confess them in the evening.
Honest.
And then the next statement from Kadampa, he says, one should cultivate love and compassion, repeatedly or many times. That's what he said. Okay, so then here we need to cultivate love and compassion, how to do that? He said that's important thing to learn about. So before we decide to cultivate love and compassion, we got to understand what is love, what is compassion. What is it, right, that we want to cultivate?
Oh, totally love Hingi Hako, Jamba Hako, Sang the West.
Do you get this kind of feeling? Oh yeah, I know what love and compassion are. That's not too difficult to understand, you know. So it's almost like give me a break, you know. I know what these are.
That Toronto, Mao here at the Geshes here, Geshes and the Mintan at the Lake Hako yours. The Mato Munek to Nika, Shamba Kandemi, Hiji Karamit, Nisu, that could know the musician tea Tony here at Howard.
Those of you who have, you know, a certain understanding of love and compassion, you know, that still is, I think, coming to you more through intellectual, you know, how should I say, prism, or it's intellectual understanding. We have not yet understood what love and compassion through experiences did. So it's really very important for us to understand what love and compassion are, you know, exploring our experiences or based on experiences.
Shambata Hiji, Gomdis, Migbata, numbers and ye, Miyushi, and it numbers, the Riki Madaki, Nisan Congress, nearly.
Whether we want to cultivate love or compassion, you know, we cultivate meaning meditation here, you know, we need to consider two things with regard to each of them. What is the focus of love, and what is its subjective aspect? What is the focus of compassion, and what is its subjective aspect?
Sumta, Tate Hamawanate, the Razandoshinita, Hingi Sambajita, and that they would feel some that, and they take somebody also they have put a rate in somebody Hingi Gomuni Gomet in the Guamers. So if we really don't understand these dimensions of love and compassion, then if we simply sit in a meditation and try to generate a positive attitude, like, you know, you just try to cultivate love and compassion for others, it's a good effort. You know, maybe there's some virtue in it, but we really don't understand what they are. It's very important for us to understand the different dimensions of love and compassion. Now, talking about love, for example, in these dimensions, right, we talk about different kinds of love. There is something we call immeasurable love, and then we what we call the great love, or Chambachembo, or Mahametri. So that is the Pini Kangoni, number So
whether we want to cultivate what is called immeasurable love or great love, in terms of its subjective aspect, the subjective experience, it's just the same. But in terms of the focus, there is a big difference here. So the focus of great love or Mahametri is that of all sentient beings, nobody to be excluded here. Okay, whereas immeasurable love, its focus is immeasurable number of sentient beings, or even you can make it countless. Okay, that means, you know, we couldn't count after a while. You know, we run out of count, but that doesn't still mean we have included every sentient being in the focus. Okay, countless number of sentient beings is not the same as all sentient beings. So the focus of great love, Mahametri, is every sentient being, all sentient beings, literally. So now you see the difference in terms of the focus, right? Between immeasurable love and immeasurable love and great love.
Oh, yeah. That number is number ane devate dende teres. Samba chimbugi ne andra, samba chimbugi ne andra devate de sinje thamchita, re devate dende teres kana.
So as I said earlier, that in terms of subjective aspect of the experience of love, whether it's immeasurable love or great love, is just the same. So what is that subjective experience? It is wishing others to be happy. Okay, that is the subjective dimension or the aspect of love. You sincerely wish others to be happy.
That the nine that ninji chembo gondis, ninji gondis,
So just as we can make those distinctions between immeasurable love and a great love, now we can do the same thing with immeasurable compassion and great compassion or mahakaruna.
No. So that 미박에 군이게 자 니지 전부다 니지 체메세야 가세 레 니지 체메세야 때 당긴 해만 나이세 뭐 빼고는 잡아도 야버렸어.
So we can differentiate between immeasurable compassion and great compassion in terms of their focus, not in terms of their subjective experience, because it's just the same. But in terms of the focus, again, we can find the same kind of difference that we found between immeasurable love and immeasurable and great love.
The
subjective aspect of compassion is just the same, which is wishing others to be free from suffering or problem. So the focus of great compassion is again all sentient beings, whereas the focus of immeasurable compassion could be, you see, many sentient beings or countless sentient beings. And now let's say when we cultivate either love or compassion, we need to bring those dimensions of love and compassion in our meditation, right? We need to understand what is love, what is compassion, what is its focus, and all that. Now let's say when we are cultivating, or you're cultivating love, say, if your love only includes the people, your family members and friends, that may more be closer to cultivating immeasurable love, but not definitely going to be great love.
That university,
no.
Any Kangal Zambian Zambian cinema, that link get the Linty Geshes, any or Tandika, any Kanga sound, they would show us sound beginning. That sound crazy. Yenda Kanga, any pay San Matona, sing it Yenda to San Matona. And we may also cultivate love for all the people and beings in our universe or the world. Okay, in the Buddhist cosmology, we talk about, you see, there is the Mount Meru in the center, and there are four continents, you see, in the four directions, and then there are others there. You see, so there are beings in many parts of these continents and universe. So universe is beyond what we are thinking right now. So if we are so thinking about universal love in the sense of loving all the beings and people in our world, but then we forget about the beings in other continents, our love is still immeasurable love. It's not great love. Now, whereas if we think about all the 6 types of beings in samsara or cyclic existence, the 6 migrators, and so we include everybody, and then we cultivate love or compassion for all of them. Now, that kind of love and compassion is considered great love and great compassion. So as Domdamba is advising us to cultivate love and compassion repeatedly or many times, so that's how to do it. By cultivating love and compassion, we are generating just incalculable or immeasurable positive energy or merit. There are many positive outcomes from cultivating
great love and great compassion, or even immeasurable love and immeasurable compassion. Let's say we cultivate this immeasurable love for all humans. If we truly mean it, right, we really wish everybody to be happy, every fellow human beings, we are never going to be jealous of them, because jealousy has no room and space here. Because we want others to be happy.
Shamba going to tell Sinji again, David the Ship of Casashona, tell a fuck what you have some tongue with Matoko, Shirapaki, Ginda Drake, you know, if you did that, the Mayan and didn't do something, then you are Matisha and the Ducha.
So when we cultivate great love, what we are basically really experiencing or try to experience is we are wishing everybody to be happy. So everybody meaning literally, not in a kind of a poetic sense or something here. Okay. So when we want everybody to be happy, and when everybody is happy, so how can we be jealous of them or not be happy? Or we can't be like, oh yeah, this whole section of the people and beings want to be happy, but not this one, Well, then we are not cultivating great love.
So that's
So we must not adopt the perspective, as Geshe is trying to demonstrate, like a one-eyed perspective. You see, if we close one eye and look with the other one, what we see is just half of what we could normally see, And then that's not right. We only see 50% of the things, and then the other 50% is left out. We can't adopt that kind of a perspective.
So that Ninja Ranjuris, the Ninja Chimbo Gompi, Sinji Kandachi in a tele and a Ninja Shagrama to control to Marish, control Shagma, control the Ninja Bote Mipa Gagres.
And then if we cultivate great compassion for others, means we wish everybody to be free from problem and suffering, there is no space left for us to get angry with others. Because anger and great compassion are incompatible. Then they don't go together.
And
I think we will stop there today. Again. I'm going to read this question first. It would seem that since emptiness of inherent existence applies to the space between self and phenomena, that the distance between myself and others is also a mere imputation. Is this true? And if so, is this a valid basis for the practice of Tonglen, the exchange of suffering and happiness between oneself and others? Okay, kind of show the issue the one again. Manju that church Ranshing Manduba Tongba said the Kasan church and the Toba Tazam rest level again. The Ibaina round the Shins, Yawa Church, your again. Parton the Toba Tazam the reverse. Pardon the Toba Taza in and the Toba Tazam give pardon the and Tonglen Yamache, she's a sentence.
And that Pardon the Kerry Sinji to say it's only gets a chagrin.
The Negativities Toba Tazam have over this signal again.
Don't let the young sing someone of Toby Tazan Hakwa Kaburis. No. Toby Tazan the Hakavina, and then Halam Tomani Kohaji about Chagris.
No. The answer to the first part of the question, yes, the space between self and phenomena is also a mere imputation. It's just a label like any other phenomenon. Okay, so everything is merely imputed by terms and concepts. Okay, that's what emptiness of inherent existence is. Now, the second part of the question, whether that is a valid basis for practicing Tonglen, what I want to say here is that every Tonglen practitioner does not necessarily have an understanding of emptiness, okay, it is possible that one has a great understanding of emptiness and then practice Tonglen. But there are practitioners who do Tonglen practice, the practice of taking others' suffering upon oneself and giving happiness to others. That's a whole mouthful to say. I'll repeat 100 times in the translation. But anyway, Tonglen practice, that's what we call. But it is possible that one may do that practice without the understanding of emptiness. But I want to also say that if one understands how everything is merely imputed by terms and concepts, it's a mere label. It's just a mere imputation label. Then one is really getting at the heart of the matter of understanding emptiness. You see, one understands that, how everything is merely labeled, then one is really getting to understand what emptiness is. So what we really need to understand or consider is that every phenomenon, everything that exists, it does not exist from its own side. You see, it is what we have imputed onto it. You see, that's how they exist. So therefore, everything is called mere label or imputation. So many people get this wrong when we say that nothing exists in and of itself, or there is no inherent existence. Then people come to conclusion, oh my God, then nothing exists at all. Well, that is a nihilistic position, right? You are annihilating, you are undermining the existence of everything. That's what is not meant by, by the statement. When we say that everything is emptiness, what we also mean is that there's something that exists, but what really exists is also a mere label. It is an imputation. Okay, so there's something we're affirming. We are not, annihilating or undermining or knocking out the existence of everything. But as a matter of we are saying that things do exist, but how? They exist as mere labels. There are many who get confused with emptiness, the notion or the concept of emptiness. So we should not just take into everything, everybody talking about emptiness, you see, because many don't get it. We really have to investigate the matter very thoroughly, what emptiness is. So when we talk about how everything is merely labeled, in order to label, there has to be a basis for labeling, right? There has to be a basis of imputation or label. A great Indian sage philosopher realized, being Arya Nagarjuna said, as Geshe quoted the lines from his memory, there is no phenomenon that is not dependently existent. There is no phenomena that is not emptiness. So what really Nagarjuna is saying is that, the dependent arising and emptiness, they complement each other. Okay, so things exist dependently, and therefore things are empty of inherent existence. Yes. I think many people seem to claim that emptiness is not that hard to understand or realize, but I don't agree with that. Okay? When we look at the life stories of great masters in ancient India and Tibet, including Lama Tsongkhapa or Je Rinpoche or Gyalwa Lobsang Traba, all the names meaning the same person sitting there. How much purification and efforts he had to make in order to realize what emptiness is. So that tells us that emptiness is not an easy thing to understand. Otherwise, why did he have to go through so much, efforts?
가능해. 이나야 소사되자마 오가 주는 패네. 사람분들 순수한 세나. 다가는 멘다사나. 멘다사에도 도 다가스면에 루이냐 페베슨 도 하베로 베트는 용은 잡으더니 말이다. 단 드레진도 내내도 신나 간인도 세 잡이나 투강스는 이거서래. 드레도 저다 다가는 뭐 사사 뭐 돼. 근데 내내 동작을 순수한 그 계속 트리송도.
At the beginning of a very excellent work of Lama Tsongkhapa called Lekshe Nyingpo, the essence of eloquent elucidation or presentation, Lama Tsongkhapa says that there have been many, people, meaning he masters, with great qualities. But even with greatest of efforts they met, they failed to understand what emptiness is. But by the blessing and inspiration of Manjushri, I have been fortunate to realize what it is. Okay? So that tells us that emptiness is not an easy thing to realize. Okay? Many highly qualified, many great qualities, masters failed in their attempts. And so what we learn from Lama Tsongkhapa's life story, for example, which is true with many other lamas and practitioners, is that one needs to do this tremendous amount of purification and accumulation practice to be able to realize what emptiness is. So Lama Tsongkhapa, he did an intensive purification and accumulation practice in a place called Wolka in central Tibet. Okay? And he accumulated as many as something like now this number is probably going to be wrong, but let me see, there has to be 5 zeros after 35. So that is what? 1, 2, 3 million some, I think prostrations. And he did the mandala offering on a stone base, as Geshe was trying to describe the size of it, there must be a feet, and he saw it there. And how his wrists were torn apart, by making those mandala, cleaning the mandala base and offering so many mandala offerings. So through such intense purification practice and accumulation of merit, that Lama Tsongkhapa was finally able to see the 35 Buddhas of the confession practice and other deities, including Manjushri, and then realize what emptiness is. So by the grace of Guru Manjushri, I have realized emptiness out of love and compassion. Now I'm going to explain what it is. That's how he states things in his salutation and promise of composition in that work. So we often say that we need to practice method and wisdom together. They need to be brought into unity, right? And often the wisdom we talk about is the wisdom realizing emptiness as it is, and the method is often we talk about cultivating bodhichitta or altruism. Now here, what I want to say is again, or remind you for those who understand, who have heard this before, is there are practitioners who first realize emptiness and then cultivate bodhichitta. There are others who first cultivate bodhichitta and then realize emptiness. Okay?
Yangda Hesong Huntates. Yangda with 10 Hebden Huntan, they get some use. 1 year that 1 to is a chance, some is about 1 year that 1 to Chabet in Lucini, Yanang.
So such distinctions are made among the bodhisattvas. The bodhisattvas with higher faculties or intelligence, their approach is first they realize what emptiness is, and then they cultivate bodhicitta. But then those who do not have the similar faculties, first they cultivate bodhicitta, and then they, cultivate wisdom realizing emptiness. So from a very broader, high-level perspective, I think it's more important to cultivate bodhicitta first than emptiness. Why? Because even the realized beings of the Shirvakas and Pratika Buddhas, they have realization of emptiness, but what they don't have is bodhicitta. Okay? So bodhicitta is what differentiates even these realized beings from the other school of Buddhism, from those of the Bodhisattvas. So without bodhicitta, there is no way, literally, to become an enlightened being or Buddha. So as it is very important and we would like to become an enlightened being or Buddha, so therefore it is important for us to cultivate bodhicitta. So we will stop there today and let us dedicate our merit. By the power of our collective merit, may Dharma, the source of benefits and happiness, flourishes throughout the universe. May His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all other great holy beings and masters live long and be successful in fulfilling their visions benefiting sentient beings. May spiritual communities throughout the world and spiritual practitioners from all traditions remain healthy, harmonious, and be successful in fulfilling their spiritual aspirations. May this and other world environments be free of all kinds of unwanted pains and problems, and beings find peace, happiness, prosperity, and spirituality. In short, we dedicate our merit for all kind mother sentient beings to be free from the mental obscuration to nirvana called delusions, and mental obscuration to omniscience called imprints of delusions, and may we all reach enlightened state quickly.
Guru